we're talking about jiu-jitsu, right? This is not really about jiu-jitsu. It's about a tool.
I want to introduce them into that like community that's going to push them in the right direction, not the one that's going to tell them to go, sneak off and go vape, or skip school. Or
If you step on the mat, on the jiu-jitsu mat, and you're not willing to endure hardship and challenge, two things are going to happen. You're going to leave and never come back, or you're just going to get beat every single day.
But it really isn't about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's not.
It's about putting yourself in uncomfortable places. Find good people who are doing hard things, can speak into your life, speak truth in your life, push you to do more than you've ever done before. Hello and welcome to the March or Die Show today. Glad to have you joining us. My name is Jeremy, here with Sean Kennard, and looking forward to this episode. This is what I am calling, I don't think this is the official title, but I'm going to call this the BJJ episode. This is our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu episode. And man, I'm excited about this. Love to talk about this, but excited to introduce you to our guest as well. However, if you're not yet subscribed to the show, please go ahead and do that. You can subscribe wherever you're listening from. Start there. Really important. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please subscribe, and then take some time, go over to YouTube. And I've mentioned this, over the years, go to YouTube and go to the YouTube channel. It's been kind of lonely over there. It's been mostly me posting videos until about 4 months ago, I guess. Yeah. And then we finally decided we were going to lean into it. And it's been great. We've got a lot of great content there. The podcast is there. The video of what you're listening to right now is there if you're listening on the podcast platform. Too. Yeah,
additional content.
A lot of content coming up. Our hard questions content is there, and those have been great. And then we're continuing to push out new content. So excited about that, building that out. Please go to the YouTube channel, look for March or Die. Just search March or Die on YouTube. You'll find it, and then subscribe there, and you'll get all of that content. Man, a lot of good things that we're pushing out, and I'm excited to share with you in the next several weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
Weekly Bible study we're going to begin here in the next couple of weeks. We'll let you know when that happens. Our daily devotional, of course, is out right now. The other content on YouTube. We've got some leadership courses coming your way. So a lot of good stuff coming your way. And we'll make sure you know all about that. But you need to be subscribed, so please check that out. That's it. That's the whole commercial.
Did you know there's like a March or Die movie or something like that?
There is a March or Die movie. It's about the French Foreign Legion.
Okay, because if you type March or Die and you don't put podcast,
right,
that movie always pops up. Of course, you can find the March or Die podcast.
So it's crazy. But. So the Marines have a reputation well earned for stealing stuff.
Okay.
Right. So
here we go.
So there's a motto.
So Jeremy stole.
Well, there's a motto, and the motto is gear adrift is gear a gift.
Okay.
Maybe you've heard this, right? So if you're a Marine and there's something sitting around, it's yours.
Okay.
And I could tell you stories about this.
Yes.
And the stuff my Marines stole.
Okay.
In various places.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I checked into 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, and the motto, March or Die, which I've told the story before, it was the motto of the unit that I was a part of, I had no idea that was stolen from the French Foreign Legion. Lifted.
Now we know.
Stolen. So that's where it came from.
Borrowed and repurposed.
Borrowed and repurposed. Right? Borrowed, right, exactly, and repurposed. What has French Foreign Legion guys ever done?
Not much, except for make a movie, I guess.
They've probably done some other stuff. So March or Die. So March or Die podcast or March or Die show, put that in.
Yeah.
Or go to marchordie.com. That is the website, and we're continuing to develop that. That's going through a rebuilding process. Rebuilding, not rebranding, but definitely rebuilding to the point. I mean, a lot of the stuff we push out will be through that. Yeah, so the idea is that when that's done, again, in the next couple of weeks, it will have the podcast, a lot of this other content that we're talking about, and then, kind of the place where everything falls, including the store and all the other stuff.
Yes.
So, all right. So, March or Die. But today, excited about this episode. Chris Ortiz is our guest. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Oh, man. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Sean, for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you. Chris is an educator, an author, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and all of those things. Those things don't typically all work together, but you have brought them all together, and excited to talk about it today. Man, a lot to talk about. And I'll say this before we jump into this. For those that maybe don't practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or aren't very familiar with it, it means a lot of different things to different people. I think if you train, it means one thing to you. Maybe you watch it, or you watch people who train, watch mixed martial arts or whatever. You may listen to this and kind of the introduction and think this episode is not for you. We're going to talk about some specific things that Chris is involved in and is doing. But like personally, like here's an anecdote, right, from my own life. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and people say this, it changed my life, and I'm not going to say that about my life, but I will say that it changed my son's life for sure. And there's a reason that all 4 of my kids have trained Jiu-Jitsu. My daughter-in-law, the woman my son is married to, is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Our granddaughter, who's only 7 weeks old now, they already have a gi for her, right? My daughter-in-law's dad is, I think, a 2nd degree black belt. So jiu-jitsu is a big part of our family and a big part of what we've been a part of. And I started training because that's where my kids were. So early on, it's like I want my kids to train and I want them to be there. And if they're at the gym, basically it was the kids' class, and then my son had moved up to the intermediate class. They're there for several hours. I'm going to be there as well. So that's why I started training, a bunch of years ago. But when I talk about my son, so he's a police officer now, and early on when he was a little kid, he said, I want to be a police officer someday. And I didn't come from that world. I know a lot of police officers. I didn't come from that world, but I wanted him to be as equipped as possible to do whatever he was going to do in the future. And so for me, that meant finding a place where he could learn to protect himself. I've got friends, Jeremy Mahon, who's in the Houston Jiu-Jitsu community, mixed martial arts community. We served together in Iraq, very close friend. And he said, you need to get him in Jiu-Jitsu. So that's what we did. And it gave him the skills he needs to do the job he's doing right now. And talking to him right now, he's like, every day what I learned in Jiu-Jitsu is applicable, whether it's just from a confidence standpoint or, putting hands on people, the things that you need to do your job. But what it did for me more than anything is we were in a great gym, Carlson Gracie, Temecula, Thomas Cronin's the black belt there. I mean, an incredible human being with a great environment. But what it did for us is it taught our kids skills. But I say this all the time. It put them around people who were doing hard things, who were coming out of work and showing up at 6:30 at night after a long day and doing really hard stuff, doing it well, treating each other well. And it gave my kids these like social skills and mental skills in addition to the physical skills that I think have equipped them in so many ways to do what they're doing. I've got 2 adult kids. My son's 15. My other son is 15 years old. He's playing football and jumped into football. He's like, man, he's told us this. Jiu-jitsu helped me so much, just acclimatize to this environment. And he was able to jump in. So I'm a huge believer, and it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, but I'm a huge believer in getting your kids into something that pushes them physically, but pushes them emotionally, pushes them mentally, and puts them in an environment where other adults, this is super important, other adults are pushing them. It's not just mom and dad at home. And so that was a really long introduction, but Chris, I really appreciate what you're doing because I think, because I believe in it, because I've seen it work in my family, and my kids would not be, I think we're good parents. We put a lot of other good things into their lives, but jiu-jitsu has been a big part of that, and I don't think they'd be where they are without it. So super excited about what you're doing, and man, that was my introduction. That's the introduction that
I like
Sean told me to give without all the detail.
No, that's good.
But this is really important. And again, for people that don't train, it doesn't matter. The principles we're going to talk about today, you can pull into your own life or help raise your kids up.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in the same jiu-jitsu community for a long time, Chris. So when did you start training? I don't know I don't know your jiu-jitsu journey. When did you start?
So my journey began 16 years ago. And I remember seeing these cardboard cutouts at the Woodlands Tinseltown. And I believe Chad was the instructor, or he was the owner of the gym at the time. And you had these giant cardboard cutouts, and they looked like legit movie posters. Yeah. Right? And you got like Chad standing there, and the shadow made him look a little bit taller.
I think he still has those up in his house.
Yeah, I bet he does. Yeah.
But Daniel Kim was on there, I believe, and a couple other people.
Daniel Kim, let me stop you real quick. My son started training at a gym in Northern California. And I texted Chad after he started training there. I'm like, do you know any of these guys? And Daniel Kim was on the list. Daniel Kim was my son's first Muay Thai instructor.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Small world.
Small world. Sorry, interrupted you. Go ahead.
But what I was saying is, it was that movie poster that really drew my attention. And we all know Chad. Like, he's a master marketer.
Oh,
that's top of the food chain when it comes to that. So I found out where this location was at, drove by for like 2 weeks. I didn't have the courage to walk in because the idea of what was going on in there was pretty scary, and then after 2 weeks, during spring break, I walked in, gave it a try, had Chad Kite and Chad Robo in there.
Oh, yeah.
Got to train a little bit. Both of them proceeded to fold me up like laundry with me still in the laundry. And from that moment on, I fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because it let me know how human I was. And I think that I had a very false sense of confidence, so I needed that at that juncture in my life.
So you were already teaching at this time and coaching, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you feel like, we'll tease what we're going to get into, jiu-jitsu in schools. You feel like jiu-jitsu is an avenue that could be very, very powerful for youth?
I believe that it's a huge avenue that can be powerful for the youth. Like you were speaking earlier, Mr. Jeremy, about the hard skills and the soft skills that jiu-jitsu provides. I think a lot of times we focus on the hard skills, right? Like being physically fit, the ability to subdue somebody without, landing any strikes or whatnot and just control a situation. But for me, like the secret sauce that I want to share, with our young people is the soft skills that come along with it. Having the confidence to walk into a room and not be, intimidated or feel like you got to have your chest out and, saying or acting a certain way, being pleasant to be around, being self-aware, being in the moment. Like these are all skills that I think are important to our youth. If we are going to make education, a priority in this country.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I have a side question, a sidebar conversation, and then I'll let Jeremy carry us into the
way off track
jiu-jitsu
today.
in schools.
We're way off track today.
I'm interested in this. It's a sidebar conversation. You're a public school teacher.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of people who are scared of, especially nowadays, potentially putting their kids in public school.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I've even, I don't love the public school model, but that doesn't mean I don't believe in public school or believe that there's a need for it, because there absolutely is. And I also believe that there's good teachers out there that have good initiatives, like trying to bring jiu-jitsu into school. So I guess my question for you for practical application, how does somebody who feels like, okay, they need their child to be in public school for whatever reason, both parents work, they don't have the funds to pay for private school, whatever, right? How do they stay involved with what the school is teaching? How do they stay involved with their child and what they're learning so that they don't feel like, they're basically losing their child, which is a lot of stuff I've heard from people in the public school.
Yeah. You know what? I think in any, I don't want to call it a business, but in anything where there's like that human element, you always have like, there's always an opportunity for like the wrong people, to be in there, like law enforcement, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
Like, all they show is the negative.
Yeah.
And it doesn't show the other 99% of the positive that's going on. And sometimes it happens when it comes to like religion, right? Like you just hear about what did this priest do, to this altar boy or whatnot. And that couldn't be further from the truth. That's like one incident, so education, it's never been more transparent. Like the curriculum, the texts here in Texas, like they're all posted. You know what your kid is getting. As far as like communication, like we're very, very, very like we're told, make sure communication is up at the forefront. If someone is struggling, like reach out, to the parent, and speak to them, because like a parent is our biggest asset. When it comes to educating a child, children are children, and sometimes they don't see the value, in what's being taught and what's being bestowed. So you have to make sure you like rope in the parent and make sure that they're involved in this educational experience and journey. I'd love to tell you that all schools are, created equal and that you're going to get the same education as you are, in Conroe ISD as you would in Spring ISD. And there's so many factors.
Yeah.
And a lot of it though does come down to like, what kind of kid are you sending to school?
Yeah.
Like if education is important in your home, your student's going to come to school and they're going to be much more receptive, to what's being given to them. And if it's not a priority in the home, the same thing's going to occur. Like they're going to come to school and it's going to be more about like the socialization and how cool I am and whatnot. It's going to be all the things that's not education.
Yeah.
So I would say, open communication, know that it's pretty transparent with the curriculum and what's being taught. You always have the standardized test at the end of the year. That's a pretty good indicator. Those tests can be a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, like public education it's a good thing. It gives our children a place, to be for 8 hours. They're going to be safe for the most part. You're surrounded by individuals that want to see what's best for the kid. Sometimes we can agree or disagree on what's best for the kid.
Yeah.
But I still believe in public education myself. And I know that I work in a wonderful school inside of a wonderful district, and it's far from perfect, but with as many moving parts, it's pretty darn close.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to your point, I think that oftentimes you mentioned what type of kid are you sending to school? And I think that some parents use the public school model as an escape for parenting and actually taking the responsibility that they have to also be a teacher in that child's life and not just leave it to the teachers and the coaches at the school. So, I mean, it's a good point you make. And to be fair, some kids would have zero positivity in their life if they didn't go to a public school because their home life is so messed up. So, anyways, I wanted to kind of get into that topic a little bit.
I think you made that point too. Like, parents need to be involved in that. And this is one of the criticisms that, coming from kind of the Christian worldview of education, right? And so I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, your kids should only ever be in a Christian school or they should only ever be homeschooled. And those are all great options. My kids are in a Christian school. They were homeschooled. They've been in a public school earlier in their lives. But the key is wherever you send your kids as a parent, if you care about what your kids are learning, you need to be involved in what they're learning. And so it can't just be a send your kids to school and then pick them up at the end of the day or let them wander back home and never talk to them about, what they learned or where they came from or that. I mean, I'm sure you lived this, but I can't imagine dropping my kids off and then never having a conversation with them about what they're learning. I worry about that in the Christian school that they go to.
Yeah.
And if you make a decision as a parent to send your kids to a large public school where people have various backgrounds and ideals and ideas and worldviews, the answer is be involved in what they're learning and help them understand the world from that kind of worldview you want them to understand it from.
Yeah, dialogue is important, right? Like you're always bouncing ideas off one another, and you're taking the temperature of your kid and kind of like reading what's going on in their life. Like I think right now, and this is just from my experience and and speaking to the kiddos, society is kind of going through a transformation right now too, and it's almost as if like communication is going more so on the back burner. I hear a lot of stories of like the norm being, like I come home and then I go to my room.
Yeah.
And then even dinner being eaten in the room. So there's something to be said about like just traditional things like eating dinner at the table.
100%.
Having a conversation inside of the car, removing the earbuds and having that constant flow of dialogue so that we know what's going on in your life and vice versa. We can also tell you, what we feel is important and we can pass on the guidance and wisdom of being a parent.
Yeah, that's good. And that, is connected to what we're talking about. I think one way to impress values on young people is to put them in environments where those values are taught. And so today we're talking about jiu-jitsu. And this is fascinating to me. I know that there are charter school programs and other programs that give kids, so much money a year they can use for different sports or stuff. And so some jiu-jitsu schools and other places, but jiu-jitsu schools have classes just for like homeschooled kids or just for charter school kids. But you're taking jiu-jitsu and bringing it into a public school and using it as a tool. Can you talk about kind of the evolution of that? Because to me, that's fascinating.
So it's an idea, right? And probably about like 2.5 years ago, I was feeling like a little disgruntled, about the public school system, and I don't like to sit on my hands. Like I'm a man of action, so I was like, how can I make things better instead of just complaining, we'll call it mitching and moaning about the situation.
I like it.
But, I've been taught that if you don't have a solution to the problem, like don't even bring your problem to the table, right? So I started making phone calls and emails a couple years back about how do we get this introduced? This is a tool that has been very powerful in my life, not only as an educator, but as a family man, as a coach and a teacher. How do we give access to this, for our kids? Because you all know it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford it, like that's a barrier to entry. And furthermore, if we're really wanting to make like education the priority here, and we have, let's say the example of like the young men that have a lot of energy and have trouble sitting still in class for X amount of hours, how about, we put someone good in their life that's able to, work them hard, that's very knowledgeable in this martial art, so that when I return them back to the learning environment, now they're ready to learn. Now they're physically satiated and they can sit and take in the instruction and soak it in like the sponges that they're, meant to be. So it's been a couple of year journey, and it's only been as of this last probably like 6 to 8 months where traction is being gained. And it's because of like podcasts like this that are allowing me to speak on it. I think we're putting public pressure on the school system, and they're starting to see that this is a decent idea. Let's look at it a little bit further, because I've been discarded for about 2 years and not even listened to.
Oh, wow.
Can you talk about, because I think the natural like response to someone saying, I want to bring jiu-jitsu into the school is violence, it's fighting. Because people, when they think about jiu-jitsu, if they're not familiar with it or don't train, they think of, it's fighting. It's the UFC, right? That's what people's picture in their mind, right? Yeah. And so you say, I want to bring this into the school, and it's going to be helpful, and it's going to be positive. Can you kind of talk about that? Because that is probably the big stigma, I would imagine, that comes with
that tends to
jiu-jitsu.
be
when you're bringing it up at a board meeting, right? A school board meeting.
That's been I think the biggest hurdle to cross, is that there's an ignorance, right?
Yeah.
But if like you look back at like Dana White's journey with the UFC, like it was compared to human cockfighting, and he had to talk to John McCain about it, and we've seen the evolution of that. So like what I've had to do is like step into rooms and have conversations with people and let them know, like, you do realize that we have children that practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu inside of the building already, and there's no arm bars going up in the restroom right now.
Right.
Like if this was something that was going to occur, like it would have occurred already. What we typically have is we have a couple of like unskilled kids that are filled with testosterone. They meet in the restroom, and then they proceed to have like the sloppiest fist fight, known to man. And there's a number of recordings to document that. But how many videos, of jiu-jitsu practitioners in the restroom do we have? And it's like, it's none, because we're confident. We don't need, an altercation. We don't need confrontation. We walk away from that.
Yep, that's good.
We can communicate our problems and our disagreement. We don't have to settle it, with fisticuffs.
Yeah. I think jiu-jitsu is wonderful for self-defense. I have 2 daughters, and my big reason for having them train was just so they could get out of a fight if they ended up in one. If somebody throws them down on the ground, I don't want them to stay and fight or throw blows. I want them to get away. And jiu-jitsu gives them the skills to do that. But one of the big skills I think you learn training jiu-jitsu, first of all, is I now know what it's like to have someone try to submit me. And it's not a movie. It's not something I saw on, a UFC fight. Like, it's not what you think it is. And so being exposed to that is helpful, number one.
Yeah.
But if you're in a good school, kind of rule number one is, if you can walk away, walk away. You and I have talked about this. Yeah. I have no desire to get into a fight with somebody out there, because there's only downside. Both people are going to get hurt. Someone may get
really hurt.
severely hurt. And so if you're learning in the right environment, what you learn is that confidence. I can handle myself if I have to. I know how to get out of a fight or get away from something if it goes bad. But most people I know that train a lot, unless they're cops or whatever, right, where they're in an environment where they have to, most of them are like, I'm the last person to get in a fight with somebody. Yeah. And I think kids need that too. They need confidence to walk away. And oddly, it's counterintuitive, but oddly, they get that when they actually can take care of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and you hear a lot of the, like we'll call them jiu-jitsu luminaries or combat sport luminaries, like that's also the same message that they preach. Real big into bringing kids in that have been bullied, but, one of the biggest pieces of advice is like walk away when you can. Like we don't know who has a knife. We do not know who has a gun.
Right.
Like there's a time to fight, but there's also like a time to run. And, if you're cornered or whatnot and you have to, hey, do what you got to do. But if given the option and there's room to back off and find an alternate route, like that's probably the right answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think kids that learn that early on, it just helps them throughout their life. What are some of you mentioned the soft skills. What are some of the other soft skills that you've seen develop in these kids that are training?
Well, for them and for me both, right? Being in the moment. I think that's something that's very lost.
That's good.
At this point in time, like we're always looking forward to what's going to happen, 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, a year from now. But like something that's very special, I think, about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and helps us grow as individuals is that like we have the ability to get lost in the moment, you know? So old me, when I was in school, my mind was everywhere. But because like for an hour and a half, you know, when I go and train, I have to be in the moment. I think I've become a much better learner, you know, by nature. I think I'm ADHD. I've never been diagnosed or anything, but everything captures my attention. But when I'm in a situation where I can absorb knowledge, I really want to absorb it now. And I think I've been able to practice that skill because of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that soft skill of being in the moment, you know, so that could be applicable in conversations with your wife, right? Like when y'all are communicating feelings with one another, like let me be in the moment, not let me be distracted with something else. Could be with your son, it could be with your boss, it could be, you know, any number of different examples I can give. But I think being in the moment is something that young people, and us too, us older folks, I think sometimes that we need practice with that, and jiu-jitsu helps with that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
How, so you said early on, or in like the last couple of years, you've been struggling, but you've had a couple, we talked a little bit, you've gotten into some rooms, and how's it been going as of late? Have you made some?
So
moves?
Early on, it hurt because I was reaching out to friends that are in positions of power in different school districts, and they would speak to me minimally. But then like when I started digging deeper and deeper, you know, I would get ghosted, and it hurt because like these are people that I know and that I love, you know, and I just wanted the professional courtesy of like, well, how could I make this better? How can I make this better? So being ghosted only fueled my fire. So the first step that I thought was a positive step was we got into Spring ISD and we spoke to their athletic director, and we learned a lot. And we learned that the route to not take is to go the UIL route, which is the traditional sports route. It's the governing body for the state of Texas, and there's a lot of red tape, you know, and he was not the most receptive when it came to introducing me to other people. But with that being said, he gave me a blueprint, you know, and I really want to share this blueprint with everyone because there's other people that are like me that want to do similar things. So from him, we got the blueprint. And then I started going and like barking up other trees. Like I reached out to the head of physical education in Conroe ISD, and Wade Haymark is the gentleman's name. And he sat down, super receptive, loved the idea, understands the benefits that jiu-jitsu can have on our kids and in our community. And he gave me another roadmap. So since then, I've been able to step into Stockton Junior High, which once you speak to the people that are on the ground level, they want this with their kids.
Yeah.
You know, the people that are actually working with the kids are like, oh, heck yes, we want this. Moorhead Junior High up there in North County, they are big fans of this. And then quite recently, my school, Knox Junior High, I got an opportunity to speak with Stacy Mosley and Gary Medore, my principal and my associate principal, and they are in favor of something like this. If everything works out the way that it is supposed to, I should have a grappling course next year.
Look out.
Now, it's not jiu-jitsu, right? It's going to be minus the submissions.
Okay.
But I can take, you know, stuff from wrestling.
Yeah.
I can take the sweeps. I can take the escapes. I can take, you know, positional stuff from jiu-jitsu. And I'll take it. Like, I'm going to start there. I'm going to document the progress we make with these young people, and then we're going to show them that we're ready to take the next step.
Yeah. Man, even like one of my, you know, I teach a lot of defensive tactics. One of the best drills that I run in a class is just a pummeling drill.
Yes.
It's just learning position, how to apply force, establishing dominant underhooks and stuff that people who don't know jiu-jitsu wouldn't know what it is. But even that is so valuable. So, I mean, that's cool that there's a step. So what is the route outside of the UIL route? It's just like a PE class, or is that what it is basically?
So and this I think is important for everybody. Like when we try something and we're unsuccessful, it doesn't necessarily mean that we failed. We just found a way not to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is we're going to call it, you know, wrestling. And there's a precedence for soccer being brought down to the junior high level. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that same, I guess, kind of like rule of thumb and bring
grappling,
wrestling from the high school to the junior high level. And the high school coach, Coach Eric Spute, got the dual state champions for the girls and the guys.
Look out.
He's a huge proponent of this. He's going to give me some mats to use for the kids, so we don't even have to raise 10, 15 G's, for mats.
Yeah.
And we're going to have, something to work out on. I think we're still waiting on a couple of yeses, from people that are above my administration.
Yeah.
But again, when you're at the ground level and you're speaking to these people that work with these young people every day, they're like, yes, this would be a great asset to the learning environment and community.
Yeah. I'm curious, one of the most powerful tools, and we talk about all the benefits of jiu-jitsu, but one of the most powerful benefits of jiu-jitsu, and we've kind of talked around it a lot, and courage and discipline, and to me, it's resilience. And I'm curious from you working in the public school, man, I feel like I run into a lot of kids that lack resilience because their home life is messed up, or maybe we live in a comfort-filled world nowadays. They can order food to their front doorstep. They can play video games. They can do whatever they want. You can watch any show. You don't even have to watch commercials anymore. My son sees a commercial now. He's furious. He's like, what is this?
What is going on?
I'm like, bro.
Why didn't you pay for the better membership?
Exactly. So, I mean, obviously jiu-jitsu would help with that, but I'm curious, do you see some of that in the school system? You get to encounter so many different types of kids. I'm sure there's parents that are doing it right and raising good kids, and not that it's always the parents' fault. But do you see that? I feel like we are falling into a generation of really just weaker people that don't encounter hardship.
Yeah, so I think it's a skill that needs to be practiced, right? And with all of our modern comforts, I think it's something that's avoided. I teach teen leadership at the junior high level, and one of the things that we do is that we practice public speaking. And my kids give 4 to 6 speeches every semester. They are deathly afraid of giving that speech. But one of the things that they end up figuring out at the end of this journey is public speaking is not going to kill me. And I bring that up because that's what jiu-jitsu can do for our youth. It's going to put them in a challenging situation that they feel is could be, life-ending. But it's like, oh, I'm okay after this. Yeah. And after you experience it, you end up being very resilient. Have any of you guys ever had a sales position?
I personally, I have had a sales position. Yeah.
Yeah. No seems like the end of the world until you get told 100 times.
Yeah.
Then it's just a word.
You're like, oh, yeah.
Same concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's super powerful because again, that's one of the greatest gifts. Because if you walk in, if you step on the mat, on the jiu-jitsu mat, and you're not willing to endure hardship and challenge, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to leave and never come back, or you're just going to get beat every single day. And so you have to be willing to step into that hardship and challenge and be willing to get better at the end of the day. And that to me is one of the greatest gifts of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think it's, and to be clear, we're talking about jiu-jitsu, right? But there are a lot of things that can teach that. And I think the principle is young people need to be forced into very difficult circumstances with the right people guiding them through that and coaching them through that, whatever that is. I mean, that's why high school sports are great.
Yeah.
There are a lot of environments, but they need to be in an environment where they're pushed to do something they don't feel comfortable doing. It's going to test them. They're going to have to learn some socialization skills. This is why team sports. It's funny, jiu-jitsu is one of those people like, oh, it's an individual sport. Yeah, when you got somebody choking you, that's not an individual sport anymore. But it's a team that has to work and make that happen and the process of it. And you have to be in an environment where that's where you learn. You don't learn in those comfortable spaces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You've written a lot about this too, and this is interesting too. You've written about fighters and their stories, and talk about some of the things you've written and why, I guess is kind of the question there. Man, you're like, I don't know if the word is consummate, like a consummate teacher. Like it's your heart, and you can tell because of all the things you've done and the way that you've done it. And, I just asked you to talk about why you did this, but it seems to me like writing, telling these stories is an extension of you're a teacher and you want to help people with the things that you've learned.
Yeah. Life's been my greatest teacher, and I'd be a fool not to use the things that have occurred to me, with me, for me. So the books that I've written, this last one in particular are things that are very important to me. And the last book I wrote was a children's book called Flow State.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share like the different, lessons that martial arts has taught me as a young man. Like, I don't think anyone would have pointed to me and said like, hey, there's going to be your teacher of the year. Hey, there's going to be someone that, has written a number of different children's book. Hey, there's someone that was going to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt or whatnot. But martial arts over the last 16 years is really like iron has sharpened iron. And I think I've become the best version of myself, a much better husband and father and teacher because of martial arts. So I wanted to share that like in a children's story form so that it could reach our youth, because I think that as parents, like, we're always looking for tools to make our young people the best versions of themselves. And I think if we can expose them to martial arts, like, our martial artists are probably our best students in the school.
Yeah.
And ironically, the most deadliest.
Yeah. Because they have to learn.
Yes.
It's interesting too, that process of learning anything that's new, particularly martial arts, is it's always something new. It's always something that's going to put you in a situation you've not been in before, and you're just constantly learning. I joke that like jiu-jitsu is the worst possible educational system there is, because it's like, today we're going to learn this, and tomorrow we're going to learn something else, and hopefully you can find the connection. But it's constantly putting you in this place where you have to learn something new and try something new and develop something new. And if kids could get a hold of that, man, then in life, they're not going to be afraid to learn something new and try something new and fail and figure it out and get help. I mean, the mentorship part of this all, right? We could talk about that all day long too, is you've got to have people in your life that help you through this. And it's just so powerful. Especially
like the community too. Like, look, like we have 3, jiu-jitsu men having a conversation about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Think about like the academies that we come from and all the quality people that we're surrounded by, we have people that are, ex-military, we have doctors, we have lawyers, educators, businessmen, restaurant owners, like building that sense of community inside of a school, when done properly and done by the right person, like it can be powerful. It could change the culture, and that's one of the reasons why, like, I'm really like trying to target like some of our rough around the edge kiddos, because I want to introduce them into that, like that community that's going to push them in the right direction, not the one that's going to tell them to go, sneak off and go vape, or skip school or screw around in class. Like, let's put you around like 5 other people that are very successful, because I want to blend it. I want some of our high achievers and some of our wrestlers and some of our jiu-jitsu practitioners, but I also want those rough kids so that like we could, change them from the inside out. And here's something funny, like usually in public school, the culture is driven, sometimes by like those 5 to 10% of kids that could be considered knuckleheads, so to speak. If like you could, just get half of those kids on board.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at the culture and the climate of a school, like changing, not overnight, but changing for the better.
Yeah.
Moving the needle, so to speak.
Yeah. Community is huge. I've said this before. You need 3 types of friends. You need a truth teller, somebody that's willing to hold you accountable to what you say. You need a confidant, somebody that you can tell information to and trust that they're going to keep that information safe, and then they're going to counsel you in a way that is fruitful for you. And then you need a ride or die, somebody that you can call at 2:00 in the morning, like, hey, bro, we got to go do this thing. I need you to not ask questions.
Let's go bury the body.
And you say, which car are we taking? Right.
Yeah.
And in a jiu-jitsu gym, not only can you find all 3 of those friends, you can find one person that meets every one of those qualities. And that's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah.
So the community side is huge.
Yeah, it's good. So let's, if we can, let's try to bring like the principles together, right? Because again, a lot of people listening, like, I'm never going to train jiu-jitsu or, whatever. And that's fine. This is not really about jiu-jitsu. It's about a tool.
Yeah.
And this is a tool that we've all used. It's been super powerful in my family and for my kids and for a lot of other people. And, I think we'd all argue that it's probably the most useful jiu-jitsu or martial art. We could argue that, right? Somebody else was standing here, they may argue something else. But it's been helpful for all of us. But principally, right, what are the principles that we would take from jiu-jitsu that we want young people to understand? But not just young people, we want everyone to understand. What are the principles that you're trying to communicate Sean, you taught a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm just a guy who goes to class. You guys are like the real deal. I just go to class and try not to get murdered by high school kids. What are the principles that this martial art has taught us, but we want it to teach others? Because the principles are what we can take. Those are what we can move around. Use a different tool. But what are the principles that people need to learn?
You go first, Sean.
Okay. I'd say probably first discipline, right? Because you can be motivated to do something, but motivation is fleeting, right? So if you say, I want to be a black belt one day, that's going to take discipline. Yeah. You're going to have to show up 3 days a week, and 2 days a week minimum, right? You're going to have to show up when you don't want to show up. And that is the unofficial definition of discipline, is showing up even when you don't want to. So discipline, one, our kids need that. Everybody needs that, especially our youth. Resilience, as I talked about earlier, right? When things get hard, so you have discipline and now it's hard and you want to walk away, are you going to stay in it? Yeah. Are you going to continue to show up? Are you going to show that resilience when your face is getting ground in the mat or whatever it is you're doing, right? Yeah. If it's not jiu-jitsu, this goal that you've created in life, are you going to be resilient enough to pursue it to its end? And then to me, one of the biggest things is just the community aspect of it, is being in whether it's a sport or jiu-jitsu or some aspect of finding a community to do hard things with. I mean, there's no secret why special forces and SWAT teams, send those teams through these grueling tests, right? Hell Week, SWAT Week, all these things, because that hardship brings people together. Yeah. And so when you encounter hardship and do hardship together, it creates a really, really strong bond. And that bond goes a lot of places. I've been on Chris's podcast. Now he's on our podcast. We'll probably do something with this jiu-jitsu thing at some point. I mean, it's just the network and the community that he creates is super powerful. So those are the three that really stick out.
So for you, it's discipline, resilience, and community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris, what would you say to piggyback off of what you were saying earlier, like, think how powerful it would be, to have gentlemen, come in and be like a guest speaker and be a guest instructor to some of these young people, and for you to share your story and see, and just let the kids know, like, hey, like, this is a route for you. You could do this. Yeah. Right. And we could do that with restaurant owners, with doctors, with lawyers, with professional fighters, like, that sense of community. I think that our combat sports community would love to give back. Man, absolutely. Like, we're just itching to make the world a better place through action. Here's a principle, and I don't even know if it's a principle, but it's really like the routing and rerouting. There is something about jiu-jitsu that I would like to give to the kids that kind of shows us how to, like, navigate and solve problems or solve riddles. I think far too often, like you said, the kids lack resilience, so they'll butt their head up against a wall and then they're like, I'm done. Yeah. But because of jiu-jitsu, like, when we hit that stopping point, we have to reroute and figure out another way. And we're like, all right, well, I'm going to take you over and sweep you this direction now, because I can feel the weight starting to teeter. Yeah. But mentally, that also happens. And if we could get that into the minds of the kids, like, this way of studying may not be helping me. Maybe I need to do it this way, And then I'd also say, like, the confidence aspect. I think kids are lacking confidence nowadays. They're afraid to take, like, risks and gamble where it's important. They're not afraid to, like, fry a Chromebook, which is the latest trend right now. But with that being said, like, there are some risks that are, worth taking. Like, think about, like, when we approached our wife for the first time, and before they were, our wives, our queens. Like, we had to take a calculated risk and gamble right there. Like, that's a gamble that's worth taking. There's jobs and opportunities that are worth risking and taking calculated gambles on. And I think having the confidence, to do the math in your head and say, you know what, why not? Yeah. I am good enough. I am strong enough. I am worthy. I am capable. So the routing aspect and rerouting, then also just giving young people confidence, because it is very, very, very apparent to me that our young people, they lack confidence. Then even if they're barking, the largest dog in the room is oftentimes the most scared. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Perspective and perseverance. I think that's what you're talking about right there. Right. And find a way. This way didn't work. That's okay. Let's find another way. Let's figure out another way. Let's find something else. Yes. And becomes a mindset that you can take into every area of your life.
It won't turn off either, man.
No, it won't turn off. It won't turn off. Yeah, that's great.
That's good.
Man, there's so much here, Chris. Thank you for the time. Where can people learn more about you, follow the work that you're doing, find your books, listen to your podcast?
All right. So I have a website. It's coachortiz.com. Coach the way that it's normally spelled, then Ortiz, Ortiz. And you could find my books and my podcast. Website looks a little rough right now, but we're going to get that cleaned up, over the summer. But I wanted to thank you guys, for giving me the opportunity, to have this conversation, because like every time we speak in public about it, like we spoke about earlier, I think we're getting closer, and the Jockos of the world, they see it, the Rogans of the world, the Dana Whites, Cody Sanchez's, Lex Friedman's, like this stuff's going to get picked up, and it's going to get spread because it's been a tremendous asset to them. And it's people like you that give us the platform to hopefully make our dreams come true and make the world a better place through action. Yeah.
Well, thanks for what you're doing. Sean uses that phrase, men of action, a lot. And we talk about this even in relation to some of the things that we're going to discuss and share in the next couple of months. But seeing a problem and saying, I'm not going to sit here and just watch this happen. I'm going to do something about it is huge. So thanks for being a man of action and taking that step. And that's huge. This is, again, jiu-jitsu is a thing. It's like, how do you know someone trains jiu-jitsu? They'll tell you in a minute or whatever.
That's a CrossFitter, isn't it?
That's a CrossFit thing, right?
That's right.
So Sean's both, which is weird. But so if you're in this world, you like to talk about it, but it really isn't about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's not.
It's about putting yourself in uncomfortable places where you have to learn new skills and continues to develop and all the stuff that we just talked about. And if you're that person that's not involved in something like this, man, find a community of people. There's maybe it is CrossFit. Maybe it's something else. I don't know.
A running group.
Find a running group.
Something.
I mean, I'll take you on a 100-mile run. We'll talk about hardship, right? But there are places in your life where you can find good people who are doing hard things, who can speak into your life, speak truth into your life, push you to do more than you've ever done before. And this has been a great tool for a lot of people, but there are others. So
yeah, absolutely. Find
yourself in that place. We talk about March or Die. It's the name of the podcast, as we discussed, is ripped off, right? Repurposed. But you're not going to march. You're not going to push beyond the hardships of life. You're going to make the decision to stay where you are and die if you don't actively pursue places to grow and to learn and to develop. And so I encourage that. But thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Look forward to sharing some good stuff. We've got so much stuff coming up, which our team is actively after. If you have not subscribed, and you've probably gotten the email. If you haven't, you can go to Substack. A lot of places I'm sending you to today. Go to Substack and look for March or Die. You'll find our newsletter there, and that's going to be a place where we're going to push a lot of content your direction as well. So check that out. But keep looking, keep watching, subscribe if you're not. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe there, and excited about the days ahead. Thank you. We'll talk to you next time.